I'm the owner and operator of Ladybug's Farm, located on the south side of Youngstown, Ohio, a very small urban homestead where I live very wonderfully with my daughter, Passion. But before I move forward and share something beautiful, I would like to pay homage to those who've come before me, those whose shoulders I am standing on. And so I'd like to have a little libation moment here with this amazing plant. So in doing so, I'm going to call upon ancestors who I feel have supported me the most. And you too are welcome to join in silence if you like. This is a way of saying thank you. I'd first like to say thank you to Hattie Adams, Hattie Ruth, Helen Wickfall, Mary McLeod Bethune, Fannie Lou Hammer, and a very dear and special urban farmer who I love very dearly, Kai Wingo, IE. Give thanks. Thank you. So, I'd like to share something with you about what I consider the spiraling movement, or ancestral wisdom, grace, plant medicine. Ancestral wisdom, plant medicine, and grace all saved me. Ancestral wisdom, as in those who've come before me, as in those whose shoulders I'm standing upon. The lands that I farm were once governed and lived there by people who highly love their community, and I'm fortunate enough to be there. So when I say ancestors, I mean the memories, the mystery, the quiet moments, the stories, the relics that I hold very near and dear to me as I've been moving forward. And when I give a little talk about grace, grace has everything to do with the in-between and in the meantime spaces. The that of girls that get back up. Times is a little troubling. But I must share too that the Lutheran consider, and not that I'm Lutheran, that there is doctrine prior to experiencing grace. There is an understanding on knowing. I'm going to say that my understanding and knowing is definitely who I am and where I've come from, hence ancestral wisdom. And then we're going to move forward into something I call plant medicine. Plant medicine as in these living, biospheric, amazing beings have always been present in my life, in your life. But somehow, in my metamorphosis, I've discovered that they've always been there supporting me. Therefore, I consider it to be medicine that these plants are offering. It is in my belief that well-being is eminently tied to the soil, and that urban agriculture is a spiraling movement that fosters relations with the mycelia landscape and human beings. I'm gonna say that again, because that's a mouthful. It is absolutely in my belief that well-being is tied to the soil, and that urban agriculture is the spiraling movement that fosters relationships with the mycelia landscape and human beings. Ancestral wisdom, grace, and plant medicine saved me. So I'll take you on a little journey. It wasn't until my grandmother transitioned that it kind of became very apparent to me that plants were something that kind of always been a part of me. Hence why I say that I am a fourth generational grower. I come from a people who had backyard cooking, gardens, fishing, playing in a park, outdoor experiences, drinking from the water hose. And these are all outdoor experiences that may have never necessarily been called nature or plant medicine. However, they're a very important part of who I am and what I possess. My grandmother, after transitioning, sent me a message that no matter what, make sure that you stay connected to nature. She and I had this very special thing. We often would talk about the birds. She would often treat the Weather Channel as if it was a sitcom. And we'd kind of just discuss the difference between northeastern Ohio's weather as opposed to Florida's weather, where I was residing at the time. And so it was my grandmother, who is that ancestor, who's always reminded me to stay true to who I am, stay true to my roots, and do the thing that you know the most. And making those connections while matriculating through college, it had definitely dawned on me that myself and peers, we weren't having that conversation about food, where it came from, and how it mattered to each and every one of us. Somehow, food was just not the topic. Not just food, but the things that we make stuff from, or our plants, dried ornamentals, bouquets of flowers. Wasn't really a conversation around farming or food. It kind of just was there. So I started asking questions. How does nature play a very important role in my life, or a very important role in my peers' life? And it was often met with resistance. You see, in our culture, often food could be used as a weapon against a group of people that look like me. And so you find certain folk not having that conversation about how food can be medicine, or how food can be healing, how food can be nourished. But we do hear conversations around food insecurity and how there are communities who are without high-quality foods or nourishing foods. It was after my grandmother transitioned and I lost 2 of my amazing jobs that sent me back to Youngstown, sent me back home from Florida. And there I decided I wanted to rekindle my grandmother's garden and her zucchini bread, something that was very, very famous amongst people in the community, as well the family. So I want to say that this was my blooming time, just like this amazing mullein flower you see here. This was my time that I started blooming and coming into the notion that there was something about me that wasn't necessarily well. Depression, not making enough money or making ends meet for my own legacy. Something that many of us face every day. But somehow, that thought, with my grandmother creating a garden or her zucchini bread, led me to realizing that there was hope, that I could also have well-being, or even have my best life possible. So that's what I did. After working on my master's in education, focus was curriculum instruction, and most of the work in my master's I did around well-being, the olfactor and children and adults, and how aromatherapy works, how possibly using meditation in nature as opposed to detention in our school systems. These were all things that were tied to what I consider the plants or plant medicine. And again, my grandmother always ringing in the back of my mind, how these were important things that led me to myself, led me back to making really positive decisions, and ultimately feeling well or being well. So I got caught up into the wave of doing what my grandmother did, which is create this zucchini bread. Why did I do that? Because then I realized you gotta grow zucchini, right? So there I did, in my backyard, 13 kiddie pools, growing zucchini and herbs and tomatoes and cucumbers. And I found that in growing all of those plants, those diversified, beautiful plants, I found clarity. My knees were feeling better. I all of a sudden found a sense of confidence and even got my beauty back. Something about nature was doing it. And one thing for sure is nature made me feel amazing. So amazing that I was able to take hold of my own lifestyle, my own decisions, and decide, I can read and write and add and subtract. Maybe I should be doing this work for myself. And that's when I decided to look over the fence and say, maybe I need more kiddie pools. No. I decided to look over the fence, make a connection with the land bank, and move forward with growing. And this is where I was able to partner with wonderful organizations that gave me an opportunity to learn how to be a better grower in Northeast Ohio. I took that education, coupled with my master's, coupled with my undergrad in criminal justice, and used those experiences to help and heal my own community. So not only was I helping and healing my own community with my own education, it was appearing to me that this was more than just my past education experiences. This was also the calling upon, the honoring of, the thanking, the being mindful, and being aligned with who I was, ancestral wisdom. And the grace, again, was the in-between and the meantime spaces where, do I want a second career? Is this exactly what I want to do? Am I really good at this? Absolutely. As my grandmother said, anything you put your mind to, you can do and you can accomplish. Because I considered myself not looking like most people think, a farmer. And when I introduce myself to this day, as my title is Farmer or Urban Farming, people often forget because I don't look like the traditional farmer. But I'll promise you this much. I look like many of the food workers that are out there, many of the farmers globally and locally, many of the food educators, many of the people in restaurants, in the fields. I am the face of food. I look like many of the folk on the front line working tirelessly to make sure that we have high quality, sustainable food. So I do look like a farmer, and I am a farmer, as my grandmother would say. So taking in ancestral wisdom, using the in-between and the meantime spaces, I figured there's something magical about this thing. It's my threes, which is my lucky number, which I consider very magical. My first threes was losing my grandmother, losing two amazing jobs, one teaching at a really beautiful school, public speaking, and the other was lactation consultant. And when I lost those jobs, I thought I had lost my own identity and myself. But I took that work, put it into a newer experience, and the newer experience absolutely had to be realizing there's grace. There was prior knowledge and the knowing that I am exactly where am I supposed to be. That led me to the last part of it, plant medicine. I was fortunate enough to take a couple of classes on plant medicine and how these amazing living organisms impact each and every one of us in a way more than what you think, not just for eye beauty, but internal beauty, for wellness, for clarity, for headaches, for joint pains. These amazing living beings, I got to know on a whole nother level, hence why I call them plant medicine. So, with those threes, my question is, because what I'm saying, well-being is afoot for you too. How do you get well-being? How will you find it in your life? What are your threes? Will you be growing in kiddie pools? Will you be supporting small, sustainable farming? Will you have houseplants? Will you grow microgreens? This is a way that you too can participate in what I consider the threes, or aligning you to your greater purpose, because it is absolutely important for each and every one of us to experience well-being, not just for yourself, but for your loved ones and your community at large. So this is something I'm definitely recommending, those amazing threes. In also recommending those amazing threes, I want to emphasize again that I believe that well-being is eminently tied to the soil, and that urban agriculture is the spiraling movement that fosters relationships with the mycelia landscape and human beings. I know you heard yourself in that thesis. I know you felt yourself in that description. We are all in that description. We all participate in agriculture or nature in some shape, form, or fashion. But what I'm challenging you to do is create more of it. Participate in more of it. Welcome more of it so that we can have the best planetary experience that we have all had and will continue to have. Supporting small agriculture, supporting anything that is considered eco-friendly. You know the line, you know the song, you know how to be green. We're in a space where green space is paramount, and you are the active participants. So if I say I'm the face of food, because I know you're doing the same things I do, you too are considered the face of food. I would also like to leave you with a small chant that Buffy St. Marie shared with us some time ago. It's just my little version of something I'd like for you to consider. And it's about how we are all coming together as a collective and how it's majorly important that each and every one, just like the soil in all of its diversity, come together to create a very healing, loving space for us all. It's called We're Climbing. We are climbing, climbing together, onward, inward, creature to creation. Holy mystery, this is sacred. We are spiraling, spiraling together, onward, inward, creature to creation. Holy mystery, this is nature. We are sacred. Thank you so much for listening. Namaste. Thank you.